Hi and welcome to the analysis of Frankenweenie. This one is the animated Frankenweenie. The reason that I've chosen to do this one is because of the similarities between Vincent, but also the way that it picks up the themes of all the three questions. So let's have a look through this. Now I won't be connecting all the dots for you because it's your response, but I'm trying to put the dots there so you can link the pictures. So some common themes that we have are that breaking conventions. Tim Burton likes to make sure that we see the way that not only his films break social conventions, but also the way his characters do. Now, one way we can see this at the very start is the way that the Disney castle is changed. And it's quite an interesting change because straight away we know that there's going to be something different about this film. So that's the first way that we see it happening. Again, breaking conventions. We see that Victor doesn't want to have to play sports. He doesn't want to have to, if we link it to Vincent, go outside and play like all the other boys. Instead, his father does force him to. His dad shows a little bit of love by letting him continue to do the things he loves. But in this image we see that the scene where his father is explaining the idea of compromise to him. And if we decide to analyse this, we see that the father can represent society. In terms of this scene in the movie, we see the parents all getting together with the mayor and talking about the science teacher. And the science teacher says that these people do not understand the things they're talking about in science because they have small minds. Probably not the best thing to say to a bunch of parents, but there you go. And what we see is that the science teacher is actually trying to present a different view to the parents than what they know. And because they don't know it, they don't accept it. They don't even welcome the idea. Their first response is to get rid of him. And the quote that is quite helpful is this lady when she stands up and talks about her Cynthia has been asking questions about strange things that she's never even heard of. Yet what we see in Victor is that even after this whole ordeal, we see that it is actually in this particular version, it's Victor who stands up and wants to bring Sparky back. And his father says that sometimes you've just got to ignore adults. Potentially quite autobiographical. But we see that throughout this film, Victor is breaking conventions, as are some other characters, such as this one, Mr. Rozkraski. That'll do. And what we can see about this is that he's a character who is similar to Vincent Price in many ways, somewhat in appearance, but we also see that he challenges and inspires Victor. So again, perhaps linking this to Tim Burton growing up, perhaps an influence on his life who does challenge him. And if we compare him to the way he looks compared to the other members of society, he is different. He looks different. The others are quite round and some, inverted commas, normal looking. So yeah, we see many differences. And what we see is that in another town, when he talks about America doesn't produce scientists, in another town, maybe he would have been accepted because they understood science. But in this town, he doesn't. So Burton gets us to think about the idea that society is different. For Vincent to overcome his particular family, that could be just his society. Perhaps the family next door would have accepted him. So society can mean something big or something small. If we look at the character of Sparky, we can link it to the film as well. He's misunderstood. He's still the fun-loving dog that he has always been. And people just don't understand him. People don't understand the dark side. We remember Tim Burton often talks about that duality. And everything that happens is blamed on the bad. All the bad things that happen are blamed on Sparky, and as a result, he's actually just trying to help. But because people don't even try to listen, he is not treated very well. Again, patterns is something we see, and this beautiful image here just shows us there's some dots, the lines from the shadows, as well as some of the clothing. It creates a real interesting visual when you're shooting in black and white, but it can also give us a little bit more of an insight into some of the things happening. So when you see a pattern, it can be significant. The shadows again are used, just like in his other films, representing imagination, but also for that beautiful effect and that Gothic effect as well. So down the bottom left, we see that smoke, we see that shadow being used on the right, and then on the left as well, very Gothic with the use of the staircase as well. Because it's in black and white, the shadows are a lot easier to spot. And so in this particular scene, we can see the skull, and you can see many, many different instances of shadows being there, despite this being a classroom. So does this pose the question that, yes, there is always this duality in life. There is a dark and there is a light, and they coexist fine. And it's only when one tries to overtake the other that something happens. We see that in The Nightmare Before Christmas, and we see that when the angry mob comes as well. Some influences that he used are the Gothic tradition again. We look at the exploration of dark themes, and who would have thought an Iron Maiden would be in a Disney film? So you can see here the Iron Maiden being used, and that's really the last we see of it, and I didn't actually notice the spikes until then. Again, we can see this Gothic influence here, the gargoyle on the right, compared to that final scene where the creature is finally slain. And we also see some similarities in design to Frankenstein's monster with this particular character and the way that he looks. We see that again the common use of staircases. We see cats, we see some non-geometric lines and some anti-real themes as well. And if we look at Burton's love of horror films, and we can see that scene that you could actually just put in place of Godzilla and how that is used. So I think Burton's had a bit of fun with this one. So what we see here is that Burton has these themes that go throughout his productions. He has themes that he tries to focus on, and he uses cinematography to do this. And he also uses his characters and his story to show this. So I hope this has helped you to understand Frankenweenie a little bit better, and we can keep writing that essay.